I recently read about ChrisChris, the South Carolina squirrel that has already predicted the winner of next month's presidential election. ChrisChris follows in the paw prints of Gnachi, the squirrel, whom the same human couple raised and who correctly predicted the outcome of the 2016 election. Here's how it works. The squirrel is given a choice between two bowls, each filled with 10 hazelnuts. The name of one of the candidates is written on the bottom of each bowl. ChrisChris makes his decision and then eats the most nuts from the bowl with the name of the candidate he predicts will win. And no, I didn't make this up. I read about it in the World and National News section of the Penn Live Patriot News. Now, I won't spill the beans about the squirrel's prediction because that would spoil all the fun of November 3rd, Election Day. However, I share this story because sometimes it seems as if the world revolves around predictions, be it Nostradamus or ChrisChris the Squirrel. We all want to know just what the future will hold. This year, 2020, is no exception. Predictions abounded from the start, mostly having to do with 2020 being the year of perfect vision, for obvious reasons. We would get a glimpse of who we really are and where we are going. For me, 2020 was to be the year of my retirement from pastoral ministry. I anticipated such an Easter, my final sermon preached to a full church, followed by a festive celebration of gratitude and thanksgiving. It was also to be the year of our most amazing trip to India for Tim and Viv's wedding celebration. Jaipur, the samod, henna art on my hands and wrists. To top it off would be the birth of our first grandchild, and of course, living those initial blissful days of retirement. And then came COVID, and the predictions were all for naught, save the birth of Aurora Ann in the midst of a Boston lockdown. My final sermon was filmed in an empty sanctuary. The celebration of gratitude and thanksgiving was delayed and then abandoned. The amazing trip to India was canceled. No Jaipur, no samod, my hands and wrists bare. As for living those initial blissful days of retirement, sometimes it's hard to distinguish between that life and life during COVID. However, I think I can safely predict that 2020 will be called the year of COVID. I predict that we will remember it as the year our lives changed irrevocably, the year that we had no choice but to adapt to, if not fully embrace, a new normal. Whether history will see 2020 positively or negatively is yet to be determined, though I am sure predictions will abound. I hope, however, that when they do inevitably surface, they will not be all negative. It is so easy to dwell on what went wrong this year rather than on what went right. And a lot has gone right, and much of it has to do with COVID. We use less fossil fuels than we ever thought possible. Demand for oil and our unquenchable lust for gasoline plummeted. The world's carbon footprint diminished, and in the U.S., for 40 days this spring, we produced more electricity from wind, water, and sun than we did from coal. All in all, we proved that we really could adjust our lives to the reality of climate change. How positive is that? We started having better conversations about race in this country, too. With COVID-induced unemployment and concern about working conditions, we are forced to focus on minorities and marginalized groups. We became painfully aware of how others lived. Some of us took to the streets, others to more intimate settings. But we were talking, and some of us were even trying to listen. How positive is that? We were given the gift of time as well. Some of us got bored, but a lot of us didn't. We found we liked this extra time. Time to do puzzles and play bananagrams. Time to exercise regularly. Time to cook. Time to be with family. Time to acknowledge our gratitude. 24 hours was finally enough in a day. How positive is that? Who could have predicted all those sorts of positives? So much for predictions. This year, 2020, has defied them all. It certainly hasn't turned out the way I thought it would, but I like to think in the long run, it has turned out better. And speaking of predictions, I know you're still wondering about that squirrel and the hazelnut. Okay, ChrisChris predicted a win for Trump, but then a well-known psychic in Seattle predicts that Biden will come out on top. Who knows? Guess you better vote on November 3rd to ensure that your prediction becomes a reality.